Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to part 2 of the Monolith release note video. I am Sylphin. In this video we're taking a look at the hero changes in patch version 3.5 just because it is so big, there's so much to cover. We need to delve into this, really understand exactly what's happening, see if we can see any trends. The trends are pretty clear, but oh boy, what the changes are completely blows my mind. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, some basic all hero changes that affects everything. All damage now scales with a new card stat, power. Physical damage and energy damage have been amalgamated into one, and they're calling it power. Power increases your damage on your basic attacks, on your abilities, everything. Just power. There's no energy, physical damage at all, just power. What this means though is all of the cards, which in the next video we'll cover cards, you will see that makes it much easier. I very much like this change. People aren't going to be hurt from not having that energy damage equivalent of that physical damage card that they already have. Love it, love it, love it. Damage, armor, and health of all heroes have all been adjusted to match this fast-paced game. So they're trying to make it fast-paced, more action-oriented, so you can imagine here what those changes exactly are. Mana costs of all abilities have been adjusted. The cooldowns of all of the abilities here, I'm not even going to mention the cooldowns unless it's really significant. They've all been really reduced, anywhere from a tenth to like 50%, anywhere from like 10 to 50% of the cooldowns have been reduced on all abilities. It's incredible. So the mana costs obviously have to be adjusted as well. They want to put the ball in your court to manage your mana instead of having the system dictate it for you by your cooldown. You can just spam your abilities and the system kind of dictates your mana pool because you need your abilities anyways. There you go. Movement speed for all heroes have been increased. I wish they would have said how much. That is one of the biggest changes, but they don't tell us. They don't tell us. Hopefully it's 10, 20, 25% more. We don't know, but imagine a fast action-oriented game, how fast people move in the third person. I kind of have an idea of exactly how fast that is. Many animations, projectiles, and other effects have been adjusted to fit with new speeds. Obviously, if you're running faster than your projectile, it doesn't really make sense, right? So they've changed it. That's an exaggeration, but you get the idea. Just make everything relative to the way it was before. Most attack and ability ranges have been reduced in length to account for new speeds. I find this really interesting. You're going to be going faster, but you're going to be attacking closer together. Very interesting. So not only are you moving faster, but the battles are happening closer together. Ranged heroes have to get a little bit closer together. That means that the fighters, ranged heroes won't have as much of an advantage as they thought of with having their ability, their ranges reduced. You're gonna have to see exactly how that affects the gameplay when the patch actually comes. All slow values have been adjusted to account for new speeds, obviously, to have the same relativistic effect, right? If you're 30% of a smaller number is much smaller than 30% of a bigger number, so you need to take care of that. Basic attack range for all ranged heroes has been decreased from 1,500 units to 1,200. That is 25% of a reduction in attack range. And ladies and gentlemen, the very first hero that we are looking at is the man himself, Twin Blast. Has been of such a controversy this past while. He got his rework. So his newest affinity is growth, interestingly enough, in addition to Fury. So he's going to have the ability to use those fantastic energy damage and armor, even though hopefully that whole meta is gone after this. he's going to have some very interesting abilities, or cards to use with the growth affinity. So maybe we'll definitely be making a video about Twin Blast and how he has changed here in Monolith. It's really exciting. So rapid fire, his nitro ability has now been, instead of Q, it's now your right mouse button, or R1 on PS4. So it's redesigned completely. Activate ability that causes Twin Blast to shoot 3 times in rapid succession, dealing 30, 35, 40, 45% damage to all 2 heroes and just 45 damage period to non-heroes. So it's going to have an interesting little bit of wave clear, not really. But 3 times in rapid succession, hopefully it's going to be like bang, 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 something like that. I don't know. Bang, 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 a little faster than usual. I don't know, but it'd be really interesting. You can rapid fire, click that off with your right mouse, right 1 trigger. Very interesting. Key remapped, obviously, as we've talked about. Rapid fire deals basic attack damage, can crit and applies all normal on a hit effect. So it's amplifying his basic attack focus. So as being a ranger, that's pretty much what you want. And cooldown is 7 seconds. 7 seconds. You can fire 3 times every 7 seconds in quick succession. Fast action. Really cool. Love it. Grenade is now your Q or circle ability. It now has 3 charges. Grenades now only deal damage and have no slow component. So it's just a damage ability. That is where your wave clear is going to actually come from now. 3 charges of an AoE grenade. Love it. Explosion time reduced from 1 second to 0.4 seconds. Yeah, there's a little bit of that delay that made it a little bit hard to use. Now 0.4 seconds. That's going to be really, really quite manageable. It's now going to be ability damage. So of course it's an ability, deals ability damage, whereas this just empowers your normal. Right, your normal attack. This is an actual ability, so it gets classified as 1. And the ammo recharge time is 14, 12, 10, and 8. So every 8 seconds you'll get a charge, maximum of 3. It's going to be interesting to see how fast you can put down these charges. If it's instantaneously, if you go bang, 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 there's 3 grenades right on the ground. What is the cooldown? Because it's a charge, is it going to be instantaneously? Can you put 3 down as fast as you can press a button? We don't know. It doesn't really say. Be interesting to see what happens there. Rocket Dash your rocket boots. Cooldown is about the same, but as you can see here in the early game, it's actually been the cooldown has been made longer, so you're gonna have to be a little bit more careful with some ganks maybe here and there, but generally the same. Now his ultimate sounds so badass. This is so awesome. Ventilate. Twin Blast now shoots 30 shots over 3 seconds. 10 shots a second. What? The range is 2,600 units? Like 2 and a bit times your normal range? What? Damage type adjusts from physical to ability though. So if people do go for ability armor to cut down on that burst damage that they take, this won't be doing too much, but hey, 30 shots over 3 seconds, my god. No longer pierces or deals AoE damage though. No longer slows Twin Blast while active, giving him, abilities to actually move forward if you're being aggressive, because you'll have a penalty moving back. Very interesting. Cooldown is 90, 70, and every 50 seconds. Boy, that with this, oh my goodness. What can we say about Twin Blast, man? He looks awesome. Next up is Countess. Not much happens with her. All of her abilities are now classified as ability damage. Of course, the cooldowns have been reduced. Shadow Slip to 10 seconds. Range has been reduced, though, a significant amount, a fairly significant amount here, so that she's going to have to use that increased base movement speed to actually get into a little bit closer of a position. She will be very easily targetable from ranged attacks now while she is in range to use her Shadow Slip. So won't be as easy to get to that ranger as before. So I think that's good, because I think she's going to be really prominent in Monolith, just because her crazy damage. Dark Tide, this is huge. 8 seconds at all levels. Like, oh, you're going to actually be able to consistently use that to kind of poke at your lane opponents, and then actually make something happen there with a jungle. You can time that. Very interesting. Blade Siphon, it as well, down to 8 seconds. That's just every 8 seconds you're going to have, or every 10 seconds you're going to have a nice burst ready, so you can run in there, Shadow Slip, Blade Siphon into a Dark Tide, and then get out of there. Feast, again, of course, ability damage, and the cooldown reduced 40 seconds at fully upgraded. Oh boy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Kallari has received some love here. She is not very different, but there's some key things that change her gameplay. I love Kallari, even though I suck with her. Oh, something about her I really, really like. Shadow Walk. Basic attacks from stealth now deal 250% normal damage. Are you kidding me? Finally, you feel like an assassin coming out from stealth, doing 2.5 times your normal damage. That feels great. But can no longer crit. And Lim may be emphasizing her basic attack nature as an assassin fightery thing. Okay, basic attacks from stealth no longer deal bonus ability damage, so it's a complete buff to your basic damage. So people that build ability armor, this kind of sidestep that. You deal full damage on somebody that's building only ability armor. So very interesting. Basic attack. This I love. This is, thank goodness. Basic attacks, crippling dagger, backflip, and all other abilities other than your ultimate, which makes sense, will no longer prevent Shadow Walk from activating during the fade time. I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to hit my stealth, get a basic attack, a crippling dagger into a backflip really quickly, and as you're doing that last backflip, you just vanish before you use your other backflip or whatever. Or I guess you can't. I've always wanted to do that, but you can't. And I've wanted to, and that screwed me over so many times. Love to see that in there. And reduce the cooldown from 20, 19, 18, 70 to 15 seconds at all level. I like that. Just faster paced, should be able to do it a little bit faster. Crippling Dagger, of course, it's an ability, so it's now ability damage. Cooldown reduced from 15 to 6 seconds. Now you have the option of using that slow inside of a team fight. You're no longer just a one-trick pony. Come out of stealth, do some damage, jump away. Great. Team fight's over. And because you're an assassin, you can't do anything. Right? Love it. Range of the projectile has been increased from 2,000 to 3,000 units. Hopefully they fix how the actual projectile works, because I feel like if you can go in between the hairs on Grux's armpit and the dam ability doesn't hit. So I hope that they have maybe fixed that so that, it's a little bit more forgiving, because trying to hit somebody at 3,000 units with the way it is right now, freaking impossible. So projectile speed has been increased, obviously. You don't want it to take forever to get to that full 3,000 units. Slow duration, though, has been decreased from 3 to 1, but slow magnitude has been increased significantly. So I hope that it's basically like you hit somebody and they kind of don't really move that much at all. Hopefully that's the case. Again, with base movement speed being increased, I think it's a much more specific, I want you to be slowed significantly right now kind of a thing, which I guess I like. It really helps you close that gap if somebody just starts to get away from you. Backflip, cooldown reduced from 18, 17, 16, 15 to a little bit less, but especially right at the finally at fully upgraded, it's a significant amount. Death Sentence, of course, that's an ability, so ability damage. Cooldown reduced from all of these to 110, which as you can see here in the late game, they've chose to bump it up by 5 seconds, just because that global presence is really powerful now with, you know, travel mode reduced. It's much more valuable, so there you go. And now it deals base damage plus scaling rather than a multiplier of your basic attack. So what does that mean? It deals your base damage plus a scaling of the damage that you have equipped rather than just a multiplier of your damage. So I think that's going to increase overall damage. I would have to think more about that, but I think that's going to increase it. Yes, that should increase that damage, I do believe, instead of just multiplying your basic damage. Feng Mao has gotten some love here. He seems a little bit even more intimidating than he already is. Boy, I've gone up against a lot of good Feng Maos, so it's kind of scary for me. Reaping Dash, of course, its ability now deals ability damage. Cooldown reduced from 90 to 10 seconds. So again, this is no longer just a one-trick pony. You can actually use that fairly quickly. Animation speed has been increased. Projectile speed. I actually really like that. It felt a little delayed. It feels kind of like he hesitated while using it. So I like that. Hopefully that makes it just a little bit more smooth, a little bit more predictable and intuitive. Hamstring, of course, ability damage, animation speed has been increased. I didn't find it that slow, but they're just trying to speed up the gameplay. Cooldown reduction, cooldown adjusted to basically the same. Early game is a little bit longer in between uses, but other than that, the conversion shield, this is pretty significant if you ask me. Cooldown reduced from 20 to 12 seconds. Much more often. You can definitely, if you're a bruiser, use this twice in a team fight. 20-second team fight, that's pretty damn long. Shield's probably not going to be all that useful at that, but there you go. Shield values adjusted to 125, 425 at the end game. That's a significant amount. Earth Shatter, this is the one that I'm more interested in. Of course, its ability, animation speed has been increased. It wasn't that hard to land. But that will help people land it a little bit more. Targeting range has been increased though to 800 from 667. You're gonna be able to hit a little bit longer. Yeah, maybe it did seem a little short, but 800. Hopefully that feels a little bit better. Cooldown reduced 30 seconds in the late game, and there's no longer shield component to this ability. Didn't really feel like that shield kind of did very much, but that has been reduced. Maybe because of these shields here on his conversion shield. Next hero here is Greystone. He has been pretty much reworked, especially only really in his ultimate. So his Make Way, it's now an ability. Damage, of course, is his AoE attack. Cooldown reduced from 25 in the early game to 22 at the late game to 12 seconds. 12 seconds. That's a lot. That's a significant decrease in, or increase in the amount of times you can use the ability quickly. So maybe they're trying to make him a little bit more of a fighter, right? A little bit more of a fighter, be able to do a little bit more damage there. So here you can use it twice in a team fight again. It's a little bit longer of one, you can use it twice. I think we're trying to kind of seeing a theme here that Epic's trying to do. Stoic, adjusted values to be in line with game rebalance. Of course, health, armor, it's all changing, so they have to change his passive. Assault the Gates is his leap. Damage is, of course, now an ability because it's an ability. Cooldown reduced to a early game. It's pretty much the same to the end game, 14 to 9 seconds. So again, 9 seconds. Definitely use that. You can use that twice, definitely, in a team fight there. Reforged, damage type adjusted from physical to ability. It is an ability. It's been redesigned, though. Enemies damaged by Reforged are no longer knocked up and stunned. When he dies, immediately, all enemies around him are slowed. So this slow is more powerful, though, closer to the center. So you're going to be incentivized to attack a high-priority target, stick to them until you're dead, and then that slow is more powerful on that hero when you die. hopefully enabling your rangers, your other damage dealing teammates to apply that damage to that super slow target. That's a high priority. Perfect. Interesting. Reforged no longer puts Make Way and Assault the Gates on an additional 5-second cooldown. I always felt that was really strange. Maybe they were trying to account for the animation of him being as a little angel and then coming down and stuff. I don't know, but that makes much more sense. The cooldown has been reduced all across the board. 180, 130 to 80 seconds in the late game. I mean, cooldown reduction wasn't really a thing on Greystone. I tried it once. It was kind of cool to have a 80-second an 80-second ultimate, but there you go. 80 seconds there in the late game. You can make a lot happen. You can die quite a few times there in the late game trying to do some various things and not really be punished too much for it. Hallelujah! Grux has been, I hope, fixed. Oh my god. Yes. Smash and grab. It's now obviously an ability. The animation speed has increased significantly. I had a little bit of a heart attack because I was like, no. But the range reduced from 1250 to 700. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Almost 50% reduction in the range of his smash and grab. Thank the heavens. Because his grab is just absolutely ridiculous. Really is. It gets too much done. Currently, it gets too much done. And I love this. Is 700 too short? I don't know. We're going to have to see exactly how much. All I'm saying is I'm happy for it. I'm happy at least for a change, and then we can go from there. The width, though, has been increased into a wedge shape instead of a cone. So instead of a cone, it's kind of a wedge. Which I'm going to... kind of strange, but I guess the animation, yeah, that should work. So he's going to hit. The ability is going to be shorter, but over a wider area. So maybe in the jungles, maybe in those little areas that are a little bit more wide open, he can maybe get a little bit more of an effect, kind of stand in the doorway or the, in kind of the choke point and kind of pull everybody in towards him. Who knows? The cooldown has been reduced from 19 to 14 seconds at all levels, and the visual effects have been adjusted. Thank God. Like, it's been just messed up, completely stupid, and I'm so happy for this change. Is it too much? I don't know, but at least I'm happy for a change, and we can go from there. So charge, obviously it's an ability, so ability damage, animation speed has been increased just to make it a more fast-paced, exciting game. Cooldown has been reduced from 16 to 12. Pretty much standard here as in the ongoing theme with everything. Double pain, damage type adjusted from physical to ability. Of course, it's an ability, and it's his bleed. Cooldown has been reduced from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. 5 freaking seconds. 5 seconds? Bleed. 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 Are you kidding me? Like, what? That's amazing. I can't wait to do my my hemorrhage clubs build with him that focuses on bleed. Maybe I won't need the blood-soaked armor to apply the bleeds on people because we're gonna have more bleeds now than ever before. So very interesting. He's been changed. Ooh, boy. I wanted him to change. Maybe not this much. I don't know. We're gonna have to see. And his ultimate animation speed has been increased. Same map, I guess it maybe seemed a little bit slow. Cooldown has been reduced from 100, 90, 90, 70, and 80 to 50. So pretty much standard here as we've been seeing. Kwang. He's been changed as well. Not too much. Just the Judgment of the Heavens. It's now, of course, ability. Projectile speed has been increased. Make it a little bit easier to land the damn thing. Cooldown has been reduced from 19 seconds to 12 seconds in the late game. Yeah, you can use that as your initiating ability to then use your ultimate in, and then 12 seconds later you can have it to secure the kill now that that team fight is over. Usually by that 12-second mark, yeah, I would say. Gift of the Heavens, adjust values to be in line with game rebalance. Of course, don't want that lifesteal to be too powerful now that everything's changed. Light of the Heavens, damage type, of course, it's now an ability. Cooldown has been adjusted from 14 to 12 seconds there in the end game. I like that. There in the early game, though, you gotta be a little bit more careful. 4 seconds, you won't have that that armor to rely on in 4. It's only 4 seconds, but it is still something to consider. Fury of the Heavens, of course, its ability, and the cooldown 55 instead of 80 there in the end game. The biggest difference actually in the early game. 15 more seconds. Yeah, again, they're just trying to make everything quicker. You can do things more often, and with the whole mana thing that they're trying to change, very interesting to see. Khaimera looks absolutely scary. Khaimera, kind of worried, to be honest with you, because something down here is really scary. So his Unleash, his Q ability, cooldown has been reduced from 50 to 10 seconds. Not that, it's a third to every 10 seconds, but damage reduction now affects your total damage, though, not just the card scaling. So what I think this is going to mean is it's going to be the Unleash isn't going to do as much damage as before. I'm pretty sure. What it was that any additional damage on top of your base damage was reduced. So, you know, the 200 damage that you added on top of the 50 was reduced to 150, plus the 50 was then 200. But now, if it's 200 and then 50, you add those together to be 250 minus the 25%, which is much more than just that 50. So I think that's going to hurt his Unleash a little bit, but you'll see later probably why. Spirit Regeneration reduced the max stacks to 25. I think the stacks were 60, 50, something like that. It worked out to 160 health regeneration at max stacks, and this is only 70, 80 something. So they basically cut it in half how effective it is at the max of its capabilities. Health regen adjusted to 1, 1.7, 2.5, 3.25 per stack, etc. Stack duration, though, reduced from 5 to 2.2 seconds. Huge. You are going to have to stick to your targets much more frequently because attacking structures no longer apply stacks. So you can't, I guess, hit a harvester that you're fighting over, well, there aren't no harvesters anymore, hit a tower or something like that, but ambush and call also apply a stack when they land. Their abilities, I guess, yeah, you hit with an ability, I suppose that works, but that 2.2 second duration, you're gonna have to focus on sticking to your target for sure. Ambush. This is terrifying, absolutely just terrifying. Of course, it's an ability now. Cooldown has been reduced to 5 seconds. No longer applies a mini stun. Targets will now be massively slowed when they hit by ambush. Every 5 seconds, you can apply a massive slow. Close the gap. Continue on your way. Are you serious? Yeah, sure, every 2.2 seconds, your stacks will wear off, but you can ambush every 5 seconds. Oh, Call. Of course, it's an ability. Animation speed has been increased during call. Affected enemy target is stunned. Thank God. It was so messed up, his call. You had to if somebody was moving across from you, like I would have to like start your ultimate here, so that by the time the enemy actually got in front of you, by the time it hit, like it was just stupid. It was messed up. So thank goodness, because it was just messed up. It wasn't a good mechanic. Didn't work. Cooldown has been reduced, of course, 80 to 50 seconds, pretty much standard from a lot of other heroes. But what? He's just gonna be ambushing everywhere. He's gonna leap over there, leap over there, like crazy. He's gonna be a monster, absolute monster. I'm really looking forward to playing Khaimera. Gadget is kind of a little complicated, but not really. She has received a little bit of tweaks, of course, but she has a lot of animations to her, so hopefully just the increased base movement speed and everything else that happens, hopefully she's not too hard to kind of play. I think what's happened is they've made her a little bit more consistent in how she can apply her abilities, so hopefully that is actually the case. Sticky Mine. Every 8 seconds? Ugh. The super long AoE mine. Oh, of course it's an ability. Animation speed has been increased, so you'll be able to hit it. You're going to be able to hit it easier. Projectile speed has been increased, so you can actually, it gets to where it's going to sit faster. But the explosion time reduced from 4 to 2 seconds. No longer do you have to listen to the beep, 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 beep. Like now it's just 2 seconds. Get it over with. Take the damage. 2 seconds. There you go. What that's going to mean also as well is you're going to be able to get that AoE part of it off on more of the enemy team more frequently, which I think is appropriate. Really didn't end up too much. There isn't really an AoE component to it, so I like that. Speed gate, very strong now. It's going to, and yeah, so it's now an ability, of course, reduced from 20 seconds in the early game to 13 seconds in the late game. I like that. Able to use it more because it is a speed bonus, so that's going to have a lot of value here in Monolith. Speed bonus has been rebalanced, of course. Don't want it to be too effective or not effective at all. So Seek and Destroy is now an ability. Cooldown adjusted from 15 in the late game to 10 seconds at all levels. In the early game, that's going to be huge. Able to use that a little bit more often to apply that consistent damage onto the minion waves from afar. I like it. And Tesla Dome. This is where a little complicated kind of comes in here. Ability, obviously. Tick rate adjusted from 1.1 to 0.73 per second. So it's ticking less often. Instead of 1.1 times per second, it's only 0.73 of a tick per second, but it still deals 5 ticks of damage. Activation time reduced from 1 to 0.66. Yeah, there seemed to be a little bit of a delay, and it did seem to be a little bit, you had to account for it for sure. So I like that. Again, more fast-paced, action-oriented. Total time of the ultimate, though, has been reduced from 6.5 to 4.3. How the math works here? Oh, yeah. No, that's it. 5 times 1 point. No, that doesn't make sense at all. What? Anyways, it's gonna be over quicker, but tick less often. But still 5 ticks. Anyways, that's happened, and the cooldown adjusted not too much. This hasn't changed because it is very powerful. It has great synergy with a lot of other ultimates, so I agree with this, not changing it too much for Gadget. Just like Gadget, Gideon has been changed a fair amount, especially his ultimate as well. Cosmic Rift animation speed has been increased, it happens a little bit faster. Projectile speed has been increased so that rock actually comes down a little bit faster. Damage type, of course, is now an ability, and it's now 8 seconds at all levels from 13. That's a significant amount. 8 seconds. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of casting you're going to be able to do. Burn through that mana, put a lot of damage from afar out on the battlefield. Torn Space animation speed has been increased. Good. I think it should be increased a little bit more than kind of the generic increase that they've been doing to everything, because it seems to be a little bit, seemed to be a little, seemed to hesitate as he casts it. I don't know. It seems a little bit strange. Cooldown adjusted from 15 to 12 seconds at all level. Not too much because it is very powerful. It is his escape mechanic, so don't want to reduce that too much. 12 seconds, that seems fine. Burden, of course, an ability. Projectile speed has been increased, so you can actually hit the damn thing. It wasn't that hard, but cooldown adjusted to 10 seconds at all levels. You pretty much always have a Burden and Cosmic Rift. Pretty much always. Every 10 seconds, Burden into Cosmic Rift. Burden into Cosmic Rift. Crazy. I really like that. That's a huge change for him. You're going to be able to consistently apply Cosmic Rifts to close targets now because you do have that Burden and Cosmic Rift. Awesome. Black Hole, just like Gadget, has been changed a little bit. Damage type adjusted, of course, to ability. Animation speed has been increased. Did seem to be... That's a long time. 5 seconds is a damn long time, so now it's only applies its damage for 3.5 seconds, but the damage is still the same. It's just the same damage, it's just in a shorter period of time. The relative damage of the ability has not been modified. Not sure exactly what they mean by that. Relative damage to what of the ability has not been modified. It does the same amount of damage, just over a shorter period of time. And the cooldown has been reduced just like Gadget's. It is very powerful, so not too much there in the early game. It's actually been increased a little bit, but in the late game, just 10 seconds have been taken off for Gideon. Howitzer, the raccoon in a machine. Not too much for him. His missile changed to an ability. Projectile speed has been increased. Hit it a little bit more often. The cooldown is now 8 seconds at all levels, which is a third faster there or quarter faster there in the early game. That's good. I think you're kind of seeing a theme here. Casters are going to be able to apply a little bit more consistent damage instead of being so bursty. Landmine, of course, now an ability. Projectile speed has been increased. Yeah, it seemed a little bit tough to kind of put exactly where you wanted. You just had to account for it a little bit more. Cooldown has been adjusted. Quite a bit longer, 5 more seconds there in the early game, but at the late game just 1 second off, just because it is one of his greatest escape tools. So you don't want to reduce that too much. Slow grenade, of course, ability increased. Projectile speed has been increased, and the cooldown is now 12 seconds, almost 50%. As you can see, there's no travel mode, so just going to be relying on that a little bit more. 12 seconds, that's pretty strong. Make it rain, something very interesting here. Of course, an ability. Animation speed has been increased. Projectile speed, just everything's faster, more action paced, but it can no longer be cancelled. Not sure why you would ever want to cancel it, but no longer. Once you do it, you're committed. Every 50 seconds you can use it. It's a little bit less powerful just because it does deal its damage over a little bit longer period of time than Gideon and Gadgets. So I'm okay with that, but that still seems really quick. To go from 95 seconds to 50 seconds, still going to be a beast. Come on. Iggy and Scorch, he's already super powerful. Nothing happened with him. His abilities are now abilities. His oil spill has been its cooldown is now half. So this is not going to be. It does kind of seem a little useless, kind of like you get that one burst of damage and that's it. Well, now it's going to be a little bit more consistent at 8 seconds. His oil slick, his escape mechanic. This is actually kind of big. 21 seconds at the end game, down to 12. For some reason, I feel like he's may be more of a split pusher now. If he has that ability so often, every 12 seconds, maybe he can be a little bit more sneaky, go off, do his own thing, have that escape mechanic a little bit more often than everybody else. And Flame Belch, of course, is now an ability, and with its cooldown reduced, just like everybody else. Belica here, she's changed quite a bit. She has the power to be very effective, and there's some key differences in here that I actually really like. I found a little underwhelming with Belica to begin with, so I very much appreciate the changes here that are happening for her. Seismic Assault, of course, its ability range has been reduced from 2,000 to 1,600, which is okay. It did seem to go pretty far, but animation and the projectile speed has been increased, so it's going to be more reliable, but hit a little bit less far. I like that. I would rather have a consistent ability, reliable ability, rather than a, you know, oh, I just happened to hit somebody right on the end of the range. Much rather have that. Lovely. Cooldown reduced to 15 seconds at all levels. Make the early game a little bit more, you know, capable to stun somebody that's trying to come and get you. The stun duration, though, has been reduced just a little bit. 1 to 0.7 in the early game, and then 2.2 down to 1.9. Just 0.3 of a second. I think that's just to account for the more faster gameplay that Epic's looking for. Void Drone, I love this. Damage type adjusted to ability, of course, but the mana drain has been increased from just a mere 2, which does absolutely shit all, pardon me, to 34 at the end game. Oh yeah. I was surprised that it was only 2 because it basically did nothing. You didn't use Void Drone for that mana drain. Now you will. 34 in a 10-second team fight, that's 340 mana. And because mana is going to be so much more important because the cooldowns are reduced, that is huge. I love it. 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 Even especially because 40-second cooldown now at all levels. Fantastic. 40 seconds is much better than that minute there in the early game. Fantastic. Void Bomb is now, of course, an ability. The range has been reduced, though, to 900. It's maybe seemed to be a little bit far, and I like that. Reduced just a little bit in radius. Explosion delay has been reduced, though, from 2.25 to 1 second, so they're making it a little bit more of a focused ability that's a little bit more reliable, which I actually like. It did seem to be a little bit less reliable with this projectile speed on the Seismic Assault being increased, and this being 1 second. You're going to actually be able to land that damn combo, which I did feel was a little bit too elusive to begin with. I love it. Love it. I'm very happy with that. Cooldown has been reduced again to 6 seconds. Oh, that's crazy. Before Seismic Assault and Void Bomb was able to, line up pretty nicely, 15 and 12, but now you're going to be able to do 2 Void Bombs every Seismic Assault. Again, maybe just to increase that damage potential of these casters, give them that ability to do more, which I think casters a little bit underwhelmed here currently in Monolith, or currently in Legacy, so I love that change. And Neural Disruptor, of course it's an ability, no longer deals base damage though. Mana to damage multiplier adjusted to 0.8, 1, and 1.2. I think that was... I don't remember exactly what it was, but now it's going to be much more picky. It's going to be much more picky because they're doing so much more damage and so much more here in your Void Drone. You're going to have to really focus on using that Void Drone appropriately, using your Void Bomb and Seismic Assault to actually apply that burst damage, and then finish off the job there with Neural Disruptor once Void Drone has been kicked in, once there is at the end of that team fight. Love it. She's much more of a burst caster, I think. I think from this, it sounds at least, that she's much more of a burst caster. She's going to be much more of an interesting caster to play in Monolith. Narbash, not much to say. I really like the idea of him. I do love the idea of him. It seems to be a little bit underwhelming. Maybe that's because I don't play him too much, but March, 15 second there at the end game, down to 12. Just a little bit. That is going to be a very powerful ability, using March with the 4 of your teammates. So yeah, can't really reduce that cooldown too much. Song of My People though, this is huge. 40 health per second now. But if that mana drain is twice its value like it currently is, 80 mana per second for 40 health. Oh, that's gonna hurt. Don't know. Maybe it's worth it now. I don't know. I'd love healing. I don't know. I'm a healer at heart, and while I'm happy to see that, I'm kind of I don't know. Thunk, of course, it's an ability, and now 12-second cooldown at all. So there in the early game, you're gonna be able to use it a little bit more often, but the late game there, it's a really powerful ability. Super reliable crowd control for like Gideon, really for anything you need. It's super powerful, so really can't reduce that too much. Crash Bang Boom, of course, is now an ability, and that ultimate, because it is so powerful, only reduce it just a little bit for Narbash. Rampage has seen a little bit of a difference here, especially with his passive. So Boulder Throw, of course, now it's a melee. Animation speed is being increased. Projectile speed has been increased. Just make sure that more fast-paced. And 14 seconds at all levels instead of that 18 there in the early game. I don't think you're really going to be able to use it twice in any sort of engagement anyways, but just make it a little bit easier there. King of the Jungle, this is pretty huge. His health regen has been, passive health regen has been reduced significantly. 0.5 instead of 2.25, and 2 instead of 9 at the end game. That's huge. But check this out in the jungle. In the jungle, health regen adjusted to 36912 from 4.2. 12? Wow. It's going to be important to make sure that you are in the jungle, force an engagement in the jungle, maybe take the Harvester Well, inhibit the well thing. Take that. Try to do a team fight over that. Make sure to do a team fight over Prime, over the buffs. Make sure that if you are a Rampage, if you have a team with a Rampage, force that engagement in the jungle. All in all, though, his health regen actually increased. If you are in the jungle, you're getting 14, whereas before you were only getting, it's about the same, 13.2. It's about the same. Now it's just situational though, so it's now more so in the jungle than anything else. So I like that. I think his health regen was a little bit too much to begin with. Pounce, of course, now its ability. Animation speed has been increased, and the cooldown to 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Now you can engage with it and disengage by the time that team fight's over. Like that. I really like that, because travel mode's gone. That's going to be really a necessity for Rampage. Enraged can now move while transforming. Oh, I missed that while I read this the first time. That is huge. Can you pounce and enrage at the same time? That'd be cool to see. A leaping frog that gets bigger as he flies through the air. Interesting. I think that's actually really important, because that enrage seemed to be like, I'm going to enrage, and now there's nobody around me, right? It did seem like a little weird, so I like that. That's really, really cool. I didn't notice that the first time. And the cooldown, 40 seconds at the late game. Oh, jeez. In the early game, it's only 20-second reduction, but 40 seconds in the late game. That is huge. Richter, super boring. It's an ability, so it's an ability. Reduced his chain pull. Actually, that is pretty significant there in the early game. 14 seconds instead of 21. That is big at the late game, because it is so powerful. Only 4-second reduction. So I guess that is big. But the rest of his abilities, Electrocute, it's an ability. 12 seconds. Shock Therapy, it's an ability. I guess it's this as well. There in the late game, you'll be able to silence somebody every 12 seconds and slow them. That's actually pretty big. That is big, but everything else, just an ability and a little bit of cooldown reduction. Not much to say with him, but that's actually pretty big. I like that, especially in the early game. You'll be able to make a few more pulls a little bit quicker, and especially the silences here in the late game. Going to be much more of a support. I like that. Richter's my man. I love him as a support tank. So I'm excited there for that shock therapy to be used more often. As you can see, Sevarog has received quite a change. Siphon. It's now, of course, an ability. animation speed has been increased, and the cooldown has been reduced to just a flat 5 seconds, which helps in the early game so much and was a core issue with me with Sevarog. If I was supposed to start my farm in the early game, you know, in order to actually do something by the end game, why do I have a 10-second cooldown? So I find that very appropriate. Love that. Soul stack. Soul stacks are now generated whenever Sevarog kills a hero or a minion with any of his abilities. Any of his abilities. Fantastic. Soul stack growth points adjusted to 20, 50, 90, 140 from 20, 40, 60, 80. You're going to be able to get those stacks more often. So I do appreciate that. I can appreciate this change. Look though in the early game how quick it is to build up. Only 20 and then 50. And then later on another 40 to get to 90, and then another 50 to get to there. So that early game you do get that bonus a little bit quicker, but you have to really work for it there in the late game. Soul stacks now grant both damage and health, which I love. He's going to be, with this change, I think he's going to be still as much of a bruiser as Rampage can be now. Soul stack growth points give a bonus to damage and health. I'm not sure what exactly this means. I think that's kind of saying the same thing. I think that how many stacks you have give you damage and health, and then how many oh, the growth. Yeah, sorry. So each stack, each individual stack gives you damage and health, while each of these big growth points gives you bonus damage and health as well. Hero kills grant 3 stacks, non-hero kills still grant 1 stack, just like in Legacy. Love that change. That's going to be absolutely huge, so that when you have a huge minion wave that's all low on health, you can actually use your Subjugate to get those last hits, get those soul stacks. I really like that. Subjugate. It's now an ability, of course. Animation speed has been increased. Enemy minions and heroes killed by Subjugate now generate soul stacks, as we've mentioned before. And let's look at the cooldown. It's pretty much the same there in the early and mid late game, and then in the late game, just a few seconds again. That is really powerful, being a root. Don't want that to be too quick. Phantom Rush adjusts to ramp up to be more fluid, so you're not kind of rushing into the ground. Reduce the cooldown fairly significantly there in the early game. Look at that, down to 10 seconds in the early game, so you can engage and then be that tank, survive for that 10 seconds, and then maybe disengage or use it again to close the gap, to secure some kills, secure some number advantages. I love that. Love that, love that, love that. Colossal Blow is now, of course, an ability. Animation speed has been increased. No longer instantly kills minions, but deals full damage. I think that would be a little bit too overpowered if you now any of his abilities and you get an instant death with your thing. But what this does do is you can just deal the full damage and then use the Subjugate to finish off the entire minion wave. Enemy minions and heroes killed by Colossal Blow now generate soul stacks, and the reduction has been reduced to 30 seconds. Something else I missed here. Holy smokes. 30 seconds. Again, in that early game, you're going to have that ability to deal a whole bunch of AoE damage, use Subjugate to either finish them off or siphon on a whole bunch of them and then finish them off with Subjugate. I really like that. Very interesting differences here with Sevarog. I actually really like the idea. I like the idea of Sevarog being able to build stacks, do a kind of an individual thing to then serve the team. I love that. I'm very excited to try out Sevarog here in Monolith. Steel has received quite a bit of a change, and the changes are really interesting. Bull Rush has been renamed, been previous charge. Now it's an ability, of course. Animation speed has been increased. The range has been reduced to 1600. I kind of like that. I guess I did find it to be a little bit quick, or a little bit long, so I like that. Cooldown reduced to 12 seconds. just to kind of to go in the general theme here that's happening. Force shield and projectile speed has been increased. Cooldown reduction. Look at this in the late game. 20.8 to 12 seconds. You can use it to protect your team and maybe help your team get into a more favorable engaging position. And then once that wears off, then people can really engage, and then you can use it again maybe later on to help in a retreat. Maybe that happens there, or simply slow down the enemy that's trying to retreat. Love that in the early game. It's pretty much the same. So very nice. I like that change. Bulwark. I love this change because his shield was just completely useless before. Been redesigned. It now blocks 60, 70, 80, 90% of all non-AoE damage. Non-AoE damage, not AoE damage, that passes through the shield. Now lasts 3 seconds at all levels, but interestingly, while deployed, steel cannot turn, but can move normally otherwise. Hacking or reactivating will allow normal movement again. So he can't turn, but he can move side to side. Okay? So all you have to do is point in the general direction that people are coming from, deploy it, and then move left and right. So if somebody's trying to get around you, you have to just kind of sidestep to try to block them from getting around. Very interesting. I actually really like that. I think that it's going to be a little bit more reliable. A ranger that's sitting behind you might actually, be like, oh, well, he's stuck in that position, so might as well get behind him and he'll block stuff for me. I like that. We're going to see some really interesting steel ranger stuff going on here. Shield slam. Now, of course, an ability. Mission speed has increased, and its the cooldown has been reduced just a little bit. It's really strong, so can't really reduce that too much there. Really cool changes with steel. I'm really excited for that shield block. 90% of all non-AoE damage, so you can actually block an enemy ranger or fighter's damage and have somebody behind you actually protect them. I love it, and not take stupid amounts of damage while doing it, because it's basically useless, to be honest with you. So we have Dekker here. Stasis bomb is now, of course, an ability. Projectile speed has been increased. The cooldown, not too different. It is really powerful, so you can't really reduce that too much. The stun duration, though, has been decreased just a little bit, about 30%, but 30% of small numbers, not really that much anyway. So 2.2 to 1.9, not that big. Slow bubble. It's now of course an ability. Cooldown adjusted there. In the early game, you're going to have 3 more seconds in between, but at the late game it's pretty much the same. It's going to be powerful. Remember, people don't have travel mode, so slowing them down will enable your team to get away. You will be able to actually get away from somebody with slow bubble. And the projectile speed has increased. I did find a little bit slow. Rocket boots, cooldown adjusted from 15, 14, 13, 12 to 24, 20, 16, 12. Wow! In the early game, you're almost going to have it twice as less often, and then in the late game, it's the same. But remember, again, the rocket boots give bonus movement speed to nearby allies as well, so that's very powerful. But in the early game, you have to be a little bit more careful. Can't spam that too much there. Containment fence range reduced from 1200 to 1000, and the duration reduced from 5, 6, 7 seconds to 3, 4, 5. I like that. It did seem pretty damn long, so I very much like the changes here to Dekker. And we are now on my baby, my main, Muriel. I was kind of worried about her, but it doesn't seem like my worries were justified. So Serenity, it's now of course, it's an ability. Projectile speed has been increased, so you can actually land that. It seemed a little bit slow. You did get used to it, but once somebody got good at just juking it, it's kind of hard. No longer pierces through minions, though, so you have to be a little bit more accurate with it, even though that projectile speed has been increased. And the cooldown, though, has been reduced from 15 to 9 seconds. Almost half, 30%, a third difference here. But remember that that slow that it's going to apply is going to be so powerful. So powerful. So every 9 seconds you have a slow that can definitely save somebody's life, or at least prevent some damage for a significant amount of time. Awesome. Love it. Consecrated Ground, damage type adjusted from, again, of course it's an ability. It no longer does bonus damage to slow targets. I wasn't even aware it did bonus damage to slow targets, but it does apparently no longer. Cooldown has been reduced to 12 seconds at all levels. That's huge. You know, in the early game, I did definitely feel like the early game suffered. You definitely had to use a Consecrated Ground a little bit, definitely more, definitely with purpose. But now, 12 seconds there, it's going to be just flat 12 seconds. Be a nice, consistent interval of time for Consecrated Ground to use. Shield values have been adjusted for the new balance. Explosion time reduced from 1.5 to 1.05 seconds. So explosion, a little bit more reliable. But the shield values, because it's going to happen relatively more often, I'm worried that it's going to be nerfed too much. That it's not going to be as impactful as before, and maybe you're going to have to rely on your slow here on Serenity and the speed boost from Alacrity. Maybe. But Consecrated Ground gives that AoE shield, so if they nerf that, I don't know. She is really strong to begin with, so hey, maybe it is time, maybe it is appropriate. Alacrity, cooldown reduced from 15 to 10 seconds. That is huge. Again, it gives gives your allies a shield and a speed buff. If it is indeed 10 seconds, and the shield values have been nerfed too much, although it wasn't that strong of a shield to begin with, hey, huge. To be able to use it, you know, 30% more often, a third more often, crazy. Seems really powerful. Reversal of fortune, shield values, of course, have been changed. So I'm excited to play out my main. Hopefully, they don't say if ranked play is going to be added here. I don't think so. With a whole map coming out, probably didn't have any time to come up with that, so I'm really excited to try out some Muriel for you guys, show you hopefully some good plays. The Fae, guys, has seen some love. It's kind of scary because I don't know exactly what they mean by prevents movement. Bramble Patch. It's now, of course, an ability, but casting Bramble Patch now prevents movement? Does that mean that if you catch somebody with Bramble Patch, they can't move? Does that mean that that is the case, plus heroes can't move through it? So it's literally just a line, it's a wall that people can't go past. Is that the case? If so, holy crap. That is insane. She has just, with that one ability, if that is the case, is a monster support player, while also, of course, dealing damage to people that are in it as well. Wow. Cooldown reduced from 18 to 12 seconds at the late game. Use it once to maybe corner in, come in from the flank and prevent the enemy from escaping through an alleyway. What? Crazy. Harvest Nettles. Now it's an ability. Projectile speed has been increased. Kind of hard to hit, but not that hard. No longer refunds mana on hitting a hero, though. So, she's a straight-up caster. It uses mana. You have to decide if you want that DPS, and you're gonna have to kind of decide if you want to use that mana to do so. The cooldown has been reduced from 12 to 6 seconds. Could be able to use that much more often. A super long-ranged ability. She's going to be able to do that damage now with her Harvest Nettles. Untamed Growth. It's now an ability. Projectile speed has been increased. The ability duration is now no longer a stupid 3 seconds, now a nice 2 seconds, which still may be a long time, but I like that very much. Cooldown reduced from 17, 16, 15, 14 to 10 seconds. 12 seconds, 6 seconds, 10 seconds. You can see she can now be much more of a caster, much more, here are my abilities, much more quickly for some consistent damage, and prevent movements every 12 seconds. Like, yeah, Bramble Patch into a nice kind of corner in the enemy, into a untamed growth, and then into a Fly Trap, which is now an ability. Projectile speed has been increased. Casting Fly Trap now prevents movement as well. If you catch somebody with it, I'm assuming they can't move out of it until its duration is over. People can't go through it. People get stuck in it. Wow. So now you can use a Fly Trap to keep people where they are while Howitzer does his thing, while Kwang throws his sword to use his ultimate in on him, while the steel comes in, while it's going to be able, while a Dekker on your team, because now you can do all this crazy damage. Now a Dekker, you can actually have a Dekker, and while you're like, Dekker Fae, right? Wow. And the cooldown doesn't look like it's reduced there. It is increased there in the early game, but at the end game, just because it is really, really powerful. 80 seconds. And we are now on to Grim. Displacement Blast, it's now an ability, of course. Projectile speed has been increased, cooldown adjusted. Not too much in the early game, but at the end game, 9 seconds. That is huge, absolutely huge. You're going to be able to displace people away from you primarily, or if you're really good with it, actually hit people into favorable positions, but 9 seconds, that's very nice. So if you are the one that is getting engaged on, you can disengage from that hero, and then have that available later on as well to maybe, hit off the assassin that finally shows their face, right? Crazy. Suppression mode, slow, adjusted to balance, to the new balance values, right? Has to have hopefully the same relative effect, so that value probably has gone up. Deflector shield now refunds 25, 40, 55, 70% of missing mana from flat 90, 103, 116, 130, a little bit less. It was pretty damn strong. Like, it gave you a lot of health, mana back. So cooldown adjusted in the early game, a little bit less often you'll be able to use it, but in the late game, every 10 seconds. Again, nice engage from somebody, be able to use it, and then use it again there in later to maybe prevent that Countess that comes in from nowhere and uses her big burst combo. Be able to actually use that there to prevent that from happening. GTFO. It's now an ability, no longer able to move while targeting. So you have to really make sure that you're in that position and then have enough time to lock on and then fire. Cooldown adjusted, not too much. Yeah, it looks about the same, because pretty much kind of what's happening here in overall for these heroes. Murdoch has seen some changes here, and quite interesting. So Buckshot, of course, it's an ability, now be a ability damage type. Cooldown reduced to 8 seconds at all levels. In the early game, you'll be able to use that a little bit more often there. Hopefully maybe turning the tide of some of those early engagements should be exciting. Now shreds basic armor 5, 7.5, 10, 12.5. We have no idea the formula behind basic armor. We don't have any idea of what exactly 12.5 means. It's 12.5, but is that a lot? Is that nothing? Don't know. So I can't really comment on that really at all at this point. Static Trap, of course, that's an ability. They've been kind of reworked. Traps now root targets in place for 2 seconds. Ugh, what? 2 whole seconds for you to hopefully, hear the trap go off, turn around, and get 2 seconds of damage on them? Crazy. It now requires 3.25 seconds to arm, so you can't really put it under the feet of somebody and have it be effective, right? You have to think in advance where you want that trap to be. Now they last only for 90 seconds. So none of these like perpetual traps all over the map. The concurrent trap limit reduced from 4 to 3 there in the late game. Only 1 there in the early game. But the trap size has been increased to 230. That's a fairly significant amount. So maybe that's going to work really nicely on the new lanes. Maybe cover off a nice area quite easily, able to maybe be effective, because traps can no longer be stacked on top of each other. Traps underneath new traps will be destroyed, so you can't overlap them like you currently can. You just can't replace one of them really well, place another one just close enough but not touching, so that they don't cancel each other out. Move along, now an ability, no longer damages minions, and the cooldown is adjusted here from a little bit longer in the early game, but at the late game is reduced a fairly significant amount. It is a very powerful ability. It shoves people away pretty far, so I'm not surprised that this is sub 12, sub 10 second cooldown. So but it is possible if your team does a really good job in protecting you, you can use it twice there. Once at the beginning and the end of a team fight. Long Arm of the Law, of course, it's an ability. Animation speed has been increased. That's going to really help me, who sucks with that ability, use it well. And the cooldown adjusted just a little bit more frequently here all across the board. So very interesting. The traps are going to be really really something that Murdoch mains are going to have to get used to, but that buckshot being able to every 8 seconds, that potential there in the early game. And we have Sparrow, probably my favorite ranger here, Hail of Arrows. Of course, it's an ability, speed has been increased, and the cooldown reduction is now just a flat 12 at all seconds. It's an increase. Only 12 seconds. I'm okay with that. It kind of felt, Hail of Arrows kind of really, it's great for pushing lanes, but it really requires coordination. You have to really think of if there's a route coming on the target, and then you can place it, stuff like that. So I don't think that's too big of the deal. Relentless, it's now physical. So this works off of your basic attack damage. So it goes really well with her ranger focus. The stack limit reduced from 10 to 5 though, but each stack now adds a percentage of Sparrow's basic attack damage at 2, 3.5, 5, and 6.5. So this works better with more damage, not attack speed. This now works better with damage instead of attack speed. No longer are you just focused on staying alive and hitting as fast as possible to build up that passive. Now each stack adds a percentage of Sparrow's basic attack damage. So the more damage you build, the better it's going to be, because now it's only 5 stacks. So you really only have to hit 5 times. So that's very interesting. Remember that Hail of Arrows is going to apply that. So I definitely need to change my deck here for Sparrow in the future. Piercing Shot, of course, is now an ability. Speed has been increased, and a little bit of a reduction because it is quite powerful. And Inner Fire, cooldown has been reduced to 50 seconds in the late game. Yeah, her ultimate is quite powerful, and that's a very interesting change here. That completely changes Sparrow for me. Not that much. Just you're gonna have to just focus on more damage. And our very last hero here, Crunch. Left Crunch is now an ability. As you can see, everything is now an ability for him because it's an ability. Cooldown reduced to 6 seconds at all levels. Right Crunch, it's an ability, 10 seconds at all levels. Forward Crunch, dash speed is increased from 0.7 to 0.5 seconds, so it happens a little bit faster. I actually like that. Seemed a little slow, I guess. Increased the range from 1000 to 1250 and 1250 to 1500. So not only does it happen quicker, but you also go faster. That's going to be absolutely huge. It's now an ability, and cooldown is of course reduced to 12 seconds. Recrunch ability, cooldown reduced from 40, 30, 20 to 20, 15, and 10. Oh my goodness. Crunch is terrifying, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy. You're gonna need mana. If you can survive and you do those combos and weave those basic attacks in with your abilities, you're going to need mana. Oh my goodness. He is absolutely terrifying. wow, what a hero to finish off the hero section with. That is terrifying. That is terrifying. He does so much damage to begin with anyways. If there's a crunch on the enemy team, boy do you need ability armor. Boy do you need ability armor. That is terrifying. So ladies and gentlemen, there is our long look at these heroes. Hopefully I helped you in some regard with your favorite heroes, with some heroes that you aren't familiar with. Hopefully this is useful for you come Monolith, helps you maybe a little bit of an insight into your decks and how to change them. But remember, please go and check in my video on how to make that transition over to Monolith. It is coming up pretty soon, so please subscribe if you want to to see that video and see what I have to say. Oh my god, I'm so excited. I am so excited for Monolith, guys. This is incredible. I simply can't wait. Please like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, share it with the community, guys. I'm sure I can help a lot of people here. Just want to spread my passion for this game and this new update. And please, of course, subscribe if you want to see that guide on how to make that transition into Monolith. Please subscribe if you like this content, found it useful. Please subscribe so we can do it for you later. Of course, like always, stay optimistic and positive.